guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Lately we have done several videos with you talking about worm fishing in the summertime. Today we're actually going fishing. Let's head out on the water. I'm going to show you how we actually fish these baits, the tricks that we use, the ways that we actually work them on the bottom, and help you try to detect some more bites. All right guys, we're about to pull up here on the first spot. What I want to talk to you about is where to do this. Where do you want to throw a worm in the summertime? What's a good spot, what's not? Because there's a lot of water out there. Summertime, your fish are going to be pulling, the fish you want to fish for with a worm are going to be pulling out to the main lake structures. They're going to be on the points, humps, island tops, rock piles, on that hard outside structure. But not all lakes are the same. Your lake may not have these big, long, tapering points that are going to make all the difference for you. If that's the case, you want to get a little more subtle. You're looking for ledges, breaks on the bottom where it's running out shallow and then falls off. You're looking for, they don't have to be long tapering points, just corners, hard spots on the bottom. If you've got a bunch of grass and then it comes out and it transitions to rock, or the grass stops growing, those transition lines, that's all you need. On a lake that has amazing points and island tops, it's a given. But if you're on a lake where it's a little more subtle, that's okay too. Get on those key pieces of structure, like the one we're about to pull up on here. All this is just a corner. It creates enough of an edge that water's gonna run around it. There's some deep water access. That's all you need. Those fish are gonna show up there in the summertime. Now there's a few different ways to work the worm. The main way that I fish it is to shake it a little bit. And I'm throwing this on a shaky head. This is a T-Mac worm. And like every video, we're gonna link everything down in the video description. This is a T-Mac worm. I think they call it Toledo Special. It's a black blue worm on one side, green pumpkin worm on the other. So it's kind of a best of both worlds as I'm trying to figure out what the fish are doing, figure out how aggressive they are. Since, as you guys know, I haven't really been on the water in a few months. We went out the other day throwing a frog. Now that I know I don't have a full hook set, but at least I can stick a fish, got a little more confidence, so now I'm willing to go do some worm fishing. But by using this worm and using this hopping technique, I get a pretty quick feel for whether or not there's a good bite. And then I'm gonna adapt from there. I'm either gonna get more aggressive or less aggressive. And I'll explain that as we go on. Pretty sure a little one picked it up by the tail and came rushing at the boat right there. Little bit of grass up shallow, so I'm just snapping it out of the grass. If you go to pull it out of the grass, slow pull it, that grass will build up. But if you snap it free, really rip it, it'll generally break that grass loose and you're still able to get a good cast instead of having to reel up and clean it and throw it back out there. I've chosen this spot intentionally. You notice I'm throwing that bait all the way up to the bank. I'm landed up there in a foot or two of water. The way this spot lays out, it's just a corner, is all it is. It's not a big, long, extended point, but it's a good corner and current comes around it. It's very shallow up on top, just a foot or two of water, but it breaks very aggressively out to 20, 30 feet of water. It's got a little bit of grass up close, which typically I don't like to throw that worm in the summer around grass. I like the hard bottom, but the edge of this grass, get a good transition to a rock bottom. What I'm doing is I'm firing all the way up into a foot or two of water and then fishing this bait all the way down to 20, 25 feet. This is allowing me, without electronics or anything else, to determine exactly where these fish are positioned. If I'm getting all my bites up there in 2 feet of water, I know the fish are up shallow, and on all my other spots, I'm gonna start shallow. If I'm not getting bit until I'm all the way out here by the boat, obviously I don't need to be running shallow rock. I need to be fishing deeper rock edges. So a spot like this where I can check both very quickly and efficiently is a great place to start. And if I don't get bit here at all, like we have so far, that's gonna give me a lot of information too. All right, guys. We switched spots. Moved up to another rock outcrop. I switched over to a bigger worm. I went to a Magnum trick worm on a stand-up head. I also went to June bug, and then I used the second technique, which is much more aggressive, where I'm snapping that bait up hard, almost stroking it, like stroking a jig, being really aggressive, and you have to go to a heavier head to do that. So I went to a heavier head and a bigger worm. Got bit out a little bit deeper. That fish was probably in 15 foot. So frankly, now that it worked, I would say I made too many adjustments at once, because now I don't know if it's the June bug or that I got really aggressive that made the difference. So I'm gonna give it another cast or two, and then I'm gonna switch back to that smaller worm, get a little more subtle, and see what kind of a change that makes after I just repeat and see if I can get another bite out of here. Did I get a school going? Did I catch a random fish? That's the question. But you can see that more aggressive way of working that bait, where you really snap it up off the bottom and then you let it fall back down, and they'll almost always eat it while it's falling back down. They eat it on the slack line. You really don't feel it most of the time. It's a subtle pickup. Even if it's not, even if they smash it, they're smashing on slack, so it feels like a subtle pickup. And that's why one of the things that I stress for summer worm fishing is to use the most sensitive rod that you can afford to use. And that is different for everybody. I'm throwing that lighter bait on an 852 NRX, which is a 7'1" 2-power rod. The heavier one I'm throwing on a 7'1" 3-power, an 853 GLX. Both extremely sensitive rods, just to try and give me that little bit of an upper hand. And I'm not saying you need to spend that kind of money on your worming combo, but you want it, whatever your budget is, you want your most sensitive rod to be the one that you're doing your summer worming on, because so many of those pickups are subtle. Even slow fish, they'll just come up and mouth it, and every little bit of sensitivity is going to help, because the big fish and the little fish are doing that, and you can miss some truly monster fish if you're slow on the pickup. And then we talked, just a few weeks ago about the other option. If you are in a budget using a longer, softer rod so that you see that rod tip start to load, even though you don't feel it. If that tip is loading more than normal, swing on it and you're gonna catch more fish. Oh, missed him. The worm bite is brutal tough today. I mean, it's rare when you go out and struggle to get bit on a worm, but it's happening today. So the third technique, because I don't know if I'm gonna get bit or not, the third technique when the bite gets tough is just to slow down and just barely drag that rod. That's it. You just barely pull and just watch that rod tip. Barely pull, watch that rod tip. And you're watching for deflection in the rod tip, and if that happens, swing on it, whether you feel it or not. Because when you're going that slow and they pick it up, oftentimes it's just dead weight. It feels like you picked up a piece of grass, and they're just gonna turn around and let it go. So if you see that rod start to deflect, or you feel anything weird when you're just slow pulling, swing on it. I can't take it anymore. We're mixing it up. Now, I know that this is a worm video, but guys, I missed almost the entire summer over that accident. You didn't really think that I was gonna come out here and not throw a frog, right? Let's end it on that one. Thanks for coming out, guys. Hope you learned some worm tips that you can take and apply to your own lake. I had a blast with you. It's just good to be back on the water. You guys are awesome. Thanks for supporting the channel. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'll talk to you soon.